Hey guys, Jeff Wolf, president and founder of Iconic Auctions. The term one of a kind or ultra rare is thrown around a lot in the hobby. People want to hype up their items. They think their items are more special or unique than they are. And in a lot of cases, there is many one of a kind items. But in the case of what I'm holding here, it truly is a one of a kind, ultra rare piece. In my hands is an original first pressing of the band's magnum opus, their self-titled album, also called the Brown Album. This is an original pressing, and there's a few things that make this album extraordinary, and we'll start with the obvious, okay? Okay, so beautifully preserved on the inside here, on the gatefold, you have the signatures of all 5 band members. We'll start from what would be left to right over here. You've got, first off, you have Richard Manuel, who signed here for luck. Richard Manuel. You have Robbie Robertson signing down on the bottom, Robbie Robertson, and notating his instrument, because this is so early on in the band's existence that they felt the need that they needed to add their instruments. Over here, quite possibly the most rare signature on here, we have Levon Helm, who actually signs this Mark Levon Helm and puts drums. Up top we have thumbs up Garth Hudson, and last but not least, over here on the side we have Rick Danko signing. Now you'll see they've all inscribed it to Joe or Lil Joe, and that leads into the other extraordinary aspect of this album. Now, this album was signed for Joe Forno Jr. And the story behind that is Joe Forno Jr., at the time this album was signed, was approximately an 18-year-old kid. And his dad, Joe Forno Sr., was a businessman slash justice of the peace in the Woodstock area where the band recorded this very album. Now, what ties this all in is the fact that in March of 1968, there's actually a pretty famous situation, incident that happened in the Woodstock area where Richard Manuel got in a bad car accident. Luckily, nobody was hurt, but he was cited and then had to appear before a judge, which happened to be, guess what, Joe Forno Sr., who presided over the incident. Now, what happened from there is Joe Forno Sr. befriended the band and became a mentor of sorts to many band members. In fact, in his book, Levon Helm noted and talked about the story of Joe Forno Sr. being a mentor to him. This album comes out in 1969, about a year later, and Joe Forno Sr. asked Levon to get the album, get a copy of the album for him, and then have everybody sign it to his son, Joe Jr., who was known by the guys at this time as Lil Joe. Levon Helm gets this exact copy of the record from the record company and then drives to each member's house and has them sign this album. Now, the reason we know all this is because Joe Forno Jr. is the original source of this album, and he has provided a very detailed 3-page letter outlining all the details of the story of his association of his dad with the band, how his dad became to know the band, and of course, if you really know the band's history, or even if you don't, Joe Forno Jr. years later ended up actually becoming, for a period of time, the manager of the band, which is just crazy to think how this all tied together. Now, again, this album comes with a detailed 3-page signed letter from Joe Forno Jr. It's also been reviewed by all the major authenticators and is fully authenticated by Beckett Authentication Services. And it's just an absolutely extraordinary piece. We've literally only seen 2 other signed albums of the band, not this album, not vintage signed to the era. This stands as the only known vintage era signed Brown album in existence. I mean, if you look at these signatures and you know anything about the signatures of these guys, they've started to change and get more abbreviated over time. This is vintage ballpoint pen, and it's as good as you're gonna get. If you want to add a band vintage signed album to your collection, this is your opportunity. I honestly don't know when you'll see another one. This is in our auction. It's closing this Saturday, so make sure if you're a bidder, get in there, get that initial bid. If you haven't bid yet, go to our website at iconicauctions.com and register. You will not want to miss out on this because this may be your one and only shot at getting a band vintage signed album. Make sure to check it out. The auction's closing this Saturday at iconicauctions.com.